left field. Big fly for Mike Trout. 1-0 Halos. This is ground ball to second base. Reid Detmers falls down, picks it up, fires the first. The Angels have no hit. The Seattle Mariners. That is drilled out to left field. The Angels are going to have a 1-0 lead. Anthony Rendell with a big fly, his third.
Hey guys, I'm Alex Curry.
This is Joe Adele here with the Los Angeles Angels. This is Brandon Marsh.
This is Chris Rodriguez.
And you're listening to the All Angels Podcast.
And welcome to another edition of the All Angels Podcast. I am, of course, Dan Garcia, joined with, of course, Mike Brown. Mike, how are you doing today?
I'm doing good, Dan. Yeah, thanks for having me on again.
So, busy weekend. I wasn't on Wednesday. I ended up going to the game Wednesday for a major league debut, but it was Auston Warren's first day in uniform. So I went out for that game. So there wasn't anything Wednesday. So we can kind of talk about the week in general real quickly. Obviously, you had the series that started with Colorado. I believe they took 2 or 3 from that. And with the trade deadline was the next couple of days. Did that change your mind at all what the Angels should have done with the trade deadline?
No, I mean, the fan in me kind of in the back of my head was like, oh, I wonder if Perry's going to do something we're not expecting, But at the end of the day, it'd be silly to kind of I know a lot of Angels fans, I think earlier in the week were like, oh, this is a must-win game. This is going to decide, if we're buyers or sellers or anything like that. And that's kind of crazy. I don't think any GM is kind of sitting there saying, oh, I'm going to, really think about this game being the deciding point, whether, I decide to buy or sell. So, I figured that they would be sellers, which, they ended up being. Obviously, they didn't sell every piece, but some form of selling.
Yeah, so they took 2 or 3 from Colorado, and then obviously Oakland came into town where they dropped 3 out of the 4. Sunday was the debut of the Angels' #1 pitching prospect, Reid Detmers, and we'll get to that a little bit later. But their struggles against Oakland, their struggles against good teams above 500 continues. What do you think it is that just, they look so good against certain teams, and then, again, like I said, the elite of the elite come through, and they are just not able to hang at all?
Yeah, I mean, it just shows kind of the disparity right now between these, between the Angels and kind of the really good teams. It's like in July, the starting pitching's actually been pretty good if you look at the numbers. But then, offensively, these games, especially the games against the Athletics, we really miss, having Mike in there, having Anthony and having Walsh in there as well. Yeah, I mean, these games really kind of showed that we really need those guys because our starting pitching's coming around. With the A's, it's like, as long as I can remember, the games against the A's have always been really close. We get a handful here, we get a handful of wins there, but the A's completely own us this year. I almost, it's embarrassing at this point.
Yeah, you mentioned the pitching too, and that's a really good point because obviously coming into the season, even 3 months into the season, it was very obvious that the pitching was going to be the issue for the Angels. Now it seems to more so not be such a huge pitching problem as it is now just in the bullpen. Starters have actually been fairly good. Like if you look at the Oakland series, not counting today, not counting Sunday because of the whole Detmers debut, and that stuff can get kind of rocky. But if you look at the first 3 games against Oakland, they gave up 4 runs, 2 runs, and 1 run. So good pitching performances. It's just the bad thing is, though, out of those 3 games, they were only able to score 1 run total, and that was for Saturday's 1-0 lead or 1-0 win. That I don't know if the Angels have had a 1-0 win all season long, but it definitely came Saturday night,
right,
or Saturday afternoon, I should say, against Oakland. But the pitching seems to be kind of turning a little bit of a corner.
Yeah, it does. Guys like Sandoval, of course, have been pitching well. Berea had a really nice outing, and I think this is his second start after coming kind of back. And I think his first start was pretty decent too, or he might have come in I can't remember when. Yeah,
Berea's first appearance was in Minnesota, where he gave up those back-to-back home runs in the first inning, and then went the rest of the game. He ended up going 7 innings, but throwing 6 innings of shutout ball. And that's almost exactly what happened to this last time too. He didn't give up a run for quite a while, if any. So, he's looked really good at his last 2 appearances for sure.
Yeah, so it's just a combination of things. The starting pitching is kind of really clicking. unfortunately, Cobb is kind of has that kind of lingering. I think they're calling it a wrist
Yeah,
issue.
originally it said it was like a blister, and then now it came out.
Mhm.
I believe they put him on the IL Friday night, and they said it was like
Right.
right wrist inflammation, or I don't know. That was kind of weird how that came through, and how it just seemed like it was something totally different than what everyone thought it was going to be when they saw him come out of the game a week or so ago.
Yeah, so I mean, you see things kind of picking up a little bit in terms of the starting rotation. You hope, I mean, a guy like Sandoval now, to me, he seems like a deadlock to be in the rotation now for a couple years at least. I feel like he's earned it. He's pitched really well. Suarez looks good. Barria looks good. You hope that we'll get to Detmers, but yeah, I mean, the young guys are kind of coming through a little bit, so it's nice to see.
Definitely something to where, as Angel fans, I know we're not used to, but it's kind of like, wow, we actually have maybe something for the future. It always seems like, and it was going this way at the beginning of the year. A bunch of
Yep.
1-year guys or guys on the last year of their contract. You're gonna have to rebuild this whole thing next year. Now it kind of seems like, obviously with Otani doing well, and then like you mentioned, Sandoval, Barria, Suarez, like, all right, now you don't really have to build as much anymore. These guys are coming back next year. The guys are going to be hopefully productive next year, and have
Right.
some kind of a foundation. So one of those pitchers, though, that have been with the Angels since 2015, got traded this deadline. For the Angels, a very quiet deadline to about, I would say, like 2 hours, maybe 2.5 hours before the actual deadline. I think it was 1 o'clock here. Were
Yeah.
you wondering if they were going to make a move at all, or were you kind of, what were your thoughts when all this time's going and you're seeing big deal after big deal, and then there was nothing coming from the Angels?
Yeah, I mean, there was a lot of funny like memes and stuff going around on Angels Twitter, like someone wake Perry up, what's he
Right.
doing, and that sort of thing. I was kind of wondering too, but then I was kind of thinking, I mean, the way that the market usually moves when you're talking about trades is usually like the big guys, the big names kind of go first, and then teams that aren't able to get like the Max Scherzer or the Craig Kimbrell or whoever kind of maybe go to the next option. Okay, who's that next option? So I was waiting for those pieces to fall, and they did. And then, the first one that came out was the Andrew Heaney trade.
Yeah, the Andrew Heaney
The
trade
Yankees.
right here. I'll pull that up. Obviously, Andrew Heaney goes to the Yankees and cash. So obviously, the Angels are gonna help with that a little bit, his contract. But they got two pitching prospects. And when was it? Jason Junk.
Yeah.
When I first saw Heaney to Yankees for Junk, I thought it was an Angels Twitter meme or Angels Twitter just being funny. I'm like, oh, that's cute.
Yep.
And then when I actually look at it, I'm like, oh, wow, his last name actually is Junk. Okay, so I guess it's legit. So that was the first trade that really happened. Again, Jason Junk and Elvis Progreo or something like that. Progreo.
Yeah.
I'm horrible with names. But anyways, 2 minor leaguers for Andrew Heaney and cash considerations to the Yankees. What were your thoughts about the trade? What were your thoughts about the guys if you looked them up at all?
Yeah, I mean, with Heaney being gone, it's kind of bittersweet. He was he's obviously the longest running rotation piece that we had going back to 2015. And I remember when he came up in 2015, there was a lot of positivity around him, a lot of optimism. He came out of the gates like really pitching really well. He of course came over in the Howie Kendrick trade from that previous offseason from the Marlins. Actually got traded to the
Dodgers first. Yeah, like an hour.
To the Dodgers first, and then got flipped over to the Angels for Howie Kendrick. So I always wondered how his career would have been if he was a Dodger. But yeah, it's crazy. He pitched really well in that 2015 season, the beginning of that year, and then of course he had his injury problems, and then kind of inconsistent. From then on, really, posting the ERA and kind of the mid 4s to low 5s, type of guy. But going to the Yankees, he's probably a guy that probably fits in as kind of a nice depth piece to that Yankees rotation. Right. He's not going over there to be the ace. He's probably not even going over there to be kind of their middle guy or, fit in the middle of the rotation. He's kind of, heading up the back of the rotation there. So, yeah, it's kind of sad. I did like him a lot. I kind of liked his mentality. He was kind of a bulldog out there on the mound and, kind of a leader on that rotation. So yeah, it's kind of kind of sorry to see him go. In terms of the pieces that they got back, still a lot to be determined. Jansen Junk looks like he was a 22nd round pick. The Yankees back in 2017. That's pretty much all I know about him. Peguero, haven't really looked into too much. But Junk is 25. He's a 6'1" righty, 177 pounds. Looks like he's from Seattle University. I guess we'll wait and see. But this is kind of along the lines of, of what the goal of the front office was going back to the draft, is just getting young arms, literally just stockpiling arms. And so they literally did this again with this trade. They're not highly ranked Yankees prospects. I think they were kind of at the back end of their list, of their top 30. But
Junk was 22nd or 23rd. Pagan was not even ranked, and then now moved in over to the Angels top 30. I think they're 21 and 22. So again, not guys that you're planning to make big contributions right away.
Right. No, these guys might be relievers. I've always said that, a lot of systems, a lot of organizations, they can at least get some arms to kind of be good. If they're not going to be starters, they can be kind of like, okay, these are going to be bullpen arms. And the Angels, probably since like Cam Bedrosian, when they drafted him and he ended up being a reliever, since him and maybe like Middleton, I mean, that was fairly recently, but the Angels just can't. It's hard for the Angels, it seems, to even get good relievers. Because, you look at the bullpen that Perry made, he kind of tore it down. And a lot of these guys outside of C-Rod, when he was in the bullpen, aren't kind of homegrown guys. So, obviously we have Warren now, who's a homegrown guy. But, maybe some of these stockpiled arms just end up being really effective bullpen arms, and we could definitely use those as well.
Yeah, I think there's obviously, you see with the draft, with the main goal that was, and today was actually the deadline for that, to sign your draft picks, and the Angels did sign 19 out of the 20 draft picks this season. I think number 20 was the one that didn't sign. So all the top 19 guys all signed. All 19 pitchers are going to be in the system at some point, and we have to see how that goes. But yeah, obviously with this Heaney trade, it obviously signals to me that he wasn't a guy they were going to really target in the offseason for an extension. Mm-hmm. So they kind of felt already they were going to lose him for nothing if they let him walk. Because I definitely don't think you're going to extend him like a qualifying offer to try to get some kind of compensation for him. Because if no one goes on it, obviously you're stuck with that qualifying offer. And I think if you go by how it's been going, because they don't bring out the official number to the end of the season, but if you just take the increase from last year and carry it over for this year, that's going to be a 1 year, $20 million contract. And I don't think you would want to spend $20 million on Andrew Heaney.
Right.
So I think it's a good move. I think I get like with you, like I remember Heaney when he was getting traded and he got brought up, and he had great moments. He had great outings. He had stellar outings, but it just seems like whenever he seemed like he started building up momentum to make you feel like he's turning a corner, he would have 2 or 3 really bad outings, and now you're kind of back into that same, well, can he perform? Can he be this? Can he be that? Which is unfortunate now. And you mentioned it, 2015, he got brought up. The last player on the roster from 2015 is
Andrew
Mike
Heaney.
Trout.
Oh,
Mike
yeah,
Trout.
yeah.
Now that Andrew Heaney's gone, the last one there is Mike Trout. So, and we're talking, was it six years?
Yeah.
That's crazy how in 6 years, literally your whole roster has got completely turned over, except for the best baseball player out there, and definitely in our lifetime. So if he wasn't that guy, probably would have been a good chance that he wouldn't even be there. So that was the first trade, Andrew Heaney to New York. A little bit later, a little bit closer to the deadline. This one was probably I feel like it was 15 minutes before the deadline. Tony Watson heads back to San Francisco for 3 arms. Again, I'm not sure exactly how all of them are going to translate as far as bullpen starters or anything like that. But Sam Selman, a lefty who was probably the main piece in that trade, did come back from the trade and actually pitched today. And he was the guy that you knew right away would fit into that bullpen spot that Tony left right away.
Yeah. Selman pitched a third of an inning, today, gave up a couple hits, gave up a run, walked a guy. So, not really sure what we're going to get out of him. But yeah, I'm glad we at least got 3 pieces back for Watson. I think Marte is actually, I think he actually pitched an inning yesterday for Rocket City. I could be wrong, but I did see something on my timeline come up saying that Marte actually had a decent outing. I think it was for Rocket City. But yeah, I mean, 3 guys, 3 more arms. There's obviously a theme here. The farm system is definitely rich in kind of athletic, toolsy types, the Jordan Adams of the world and that sort of thing. So, Perry's definitely going to a position of need here in, across the board. It's the MO of the front office right now is to get young, controllable arms. Whether these guys have upside or not, not too sure. Can't really say that about any of these guys. To me, these are just kind of arms to stockpile the system at this point, So we'll see what becomes of them. But yeah, stocking the system.
So pretty much all those guys, except for obviously Sam, who is actually up with the team right now, and I believe no Elvis is there. No, Yvonne Armstrong, who was part of the Tony Watson trade. Everyone else is in AA, obviously excluding Sam, who is with the big league team. So a lot of AA talent right there. We'll see how that translates, and hopefully they are able to, again, contribute. Because if these guys can come up and just be solid bullpen pieces, you don't necessarily need them to be all-stars. I mean, especially for Watson, who is, like we mentioned, kind of like with Heaney, you knew at the end of the year you probably weren't going to resign him. You probably weren't going to let him go. So to get anything for these guys, you have guys that have not, besides Sam, again, who pitched today, but even going back to the Heaney trade, all these guys have not broken into the majors yet. So when they do break in, whenever they do, you have complete control. You have the whole 6-year control if that's how far you want to go. You don't have to worry about, I got to use this guy for the next 2 years and then he's going to bounce. These are all very young, very controllable pitchers that hopefully has been an issue for the Angels, can develop into something, can develop into solid arms. Again, starters, probably not. Bullpen, I think that's an awesome place to start, especially with what's happened with this season. So, yeah, how did you feel about it? So you got those 2 trades. Those are the only 2 trades. A lot of names were kind of moved around a little bit, but out of those 2 trades, how do you think the Angels came out?
I think they did fine. I was kind of on the fence with whether they should trade Raisel Iglesias or not. They obviously opted to not trade him, which makes me think, or at least hope, that they're going to try to offer him an extension in the off season. So I think it's intriguing though, because you look at the Craig Kimbrell trade that sent Kimbrell from the Cubs to the White Sox, and the Cubs got Nick Madrigal back, who was a consensus kind of top prospect for the White Sox for a long time. He even, I think, played some games in the majors this year before he got injured, and then I think he played in the shortened season last year as well. Kind of like a David Fletcher, basically, of the White Sox, kind of a high contact guy. So and they got a top prospect for half a season to Craig Kimbrell. I wonder what the Angels could have gotten for half a season of Raisel Iglesias. Definitely maybe a guy with upside like that. And then maybe you do what the Yankees did with Chapman when they traded him to the Cubs and they re-sign him kind of in the offseason,
Right. Yeah, that's kind of what I thought that was going to go. But not only that, but we have a question here. Pull this up. Are these trades good? I think we both kind of talked about it. Yeah, because you have young, controllable arms. Yeah, you have guys that can develop into the system, for guys that you were not going to bring back. And then the second part of this question is, what is the focus now for this season and beyond? So obviously it's kind of not miscommunication, but it's obvious that they weren't buyers. It's even more obvious that they're giving up some pieces. Obviously, they're not huge pieces like you made with Raisel, who had the most value on the team, you can say.
Right.
But yeah, what is the focus, you think, of this team going forward? Is it just to compete with what they have, and if they make it great, or what's your idea of what's going on for the rest of the season?
Yeah, I would say so. I mean, it seems like with the trade of Heaney, they're kind of moved on from him. They weren't going to offer him a contract, obviously, in the offseason. Tony Watson, just a bullpen piece that we could have moved for some controllable arms. So yeah, at the end of the day, we got some controllable arms back. it's kind of a coin toss in terms of how they're going to turn out. But yeah, I think for the rest of the season, obviously immediately after those trades or within a few hours after those trades, maybe it was the next morning, we got word that Detmers was getting the call up. So I think the rest of the season is really going to be a chance to see what we have in Detmers, let him kind of get some major league experience, maybe call back up Chris Rodriguez and see if we can kind of slot him into the rotation. And I think it's going to be a lot of like seeing what we have for next season, really, at this point. And the GM or Perry would probably tell you like, oh, we still feel confident with the guys we have, that, we can still make a push and this and that. But it's going to be a lot of just kind of seeing what we got at this point for next year, and hoping that, Trout and Tony and Walsh can come back, and also seeing what we have in Brandon Marsh too, who's since he's come up, he's kind of been up and down. He's definitely flashed a lot of speed, a lot of defense, flashed a lot of patience at the plate as well. But yeah, we're going to look and see what we have with these young guys.
It's funny you mentioned Marsh because that is a beautiful segue. I guess a little bit after the trade deadline, obviously all these reports come out saying this trade was close, or that trade was close, or this one almost happened but didn't happen. All the kind of that behind the scenes news starts leaking out. So there was a report out there that said Marsh was rumored to go to the Marlins for one of their top pitchers. So we got a question on Instagram. Would you trade one of our top young players? Rumors were Marsh was close to being traded. So obviously, like I mentioned, he was rumored to be traded to the Marlins for one of their top pitchers. What would you have done? Do you think it's still valuable, or they're still valuable, Marsh and Adele, and to get something of that caliber back, like that kind of high end pitching prospect?
Yeah, I mean, we've been talking about this for the last couple of years. I mean, I remember when you had me on this show, probably for like maybe the first or second time, you're like, do the Angels trade Joe Adele? Do they trade Brandon Marsh?
Right.
And I was like, it's really tough, and that was 2 years ago, and we were kind of fed up with like the Angels not having like, young solid
players,
consistent pitching. So I think the fact that this trade didn't go through makes some sense. I think it was a Marlins reporter who really kind of came out with this.
I think it was a Marlins side that leaked.
Yeah, so it was basically
side.
Yeah, it was basically a 1-for-1 Brandon Marsh for Max Meyer. Meyer was drafted last season. I think he went within the first 10 picks. He's a really high upside guy. I mean, this is like, if he was to be placed in the Angels prospect list, he'd probably be 1 or 2 now that Marsh has kind of graduated to the top. But this is kind of a top prospect for a top prospect kind of trade that would have gone down, and it would have been getting a top pitching prospect. So what the Angels need. So it's tough to say. Obviously the trade didn't go through, so we still have Brandon Marsh, which is awesome. But yeah, you're going to probably see more trades of this kind explored, especially in the off season.
Right.
It seems
like
like
full season of the other guy to kind of value. Because I think Marsh at a half season probably isn't very valuable, but if you can get him for a full year and truly see what he can do or what he has, I think ups his value. But it's going to be interesting to see though this offseason. Okay, if they do trade Marsh, if they do trade Adele, if they do trade both, because obviously time's kind of ticking on that outfield as far as Upton is a year older with 1 year left next year on his contract. So it could be very easy for the Angels to pull a Pujols for the most part and just eat the contract, and then DFA Upton next year if need be. I mean, they've done it with Pujols for way more money than what Upton's going to be making next year, but then you still need to fill in those 2 spots next to Trout.
Mm-hmm. Yeah,
obviously Eaton and Lagares and those guys aren't the long-term solution for that outfield spot. Yeah, they're doing the job now, but I just don't see them trading Marsh unless it's a really good return, and I really don't see them trading Joe unless it's a really good return, because like I said, after that, I mean, your next probably closest prospect outfield-wise is Jordan Adams, and he's still in high A ball and has battled injury this season and has yet to be promoted to Double-A. So you got to see how that's going to affect the team or affect him. I just don't know if you can trade Marsh or Adele at this offseason, again, unless there is an offer that absolutely blows your socks off and you make it a 2-for-1 deal or something like that. But if it's a 1-for-1 deal, I just don't know if you can make that deal because of the whole, they're right there. They are literally going to be in your starting lineup next year.
Right. Yeah, it's tough. I mean, yeah, because you speak to an interesting point. If we traded, say, Joe or Brandon, and we got like a controllable high upside pitching prospect, then what do we do with the outfield? We have Adams is a couple years away. So then we're filling one hole, but we're kind of revealing another hole on the team, which would be in the outfield. So it's interesting, and another interesting point is that I thought that I'm surprised that Marsh was kind of the trade piece in that, because when they brought him up and they hadn't brought up Joe yet, I was like, I wonder if Perry's thinking like Joe could be like a good like trade piece, or if anyone was going to get moved at this point, I was thinking, it might just be Joe. But yeah, I mean, we'll see. It's funny too, because we were talking to Rhett the other week when he was on the podcast about if he got any sense as to what players in the system Perry kind of favored, or if he was gonna kind of come in and kind of be like, well, I didn't draft this guy, so I kind of want to use him as a trade piece. And the fact that Marsh's name is out there in trade talk is probably a sign that Perry kind of might want to use some of these valued pieces while he can to get pitching. So we'll definitely see more of this in the winter for sure. So
yeah, I think too. I think again, those two guys are probably going to be the most talked about trade wise. Like I said, I don't know how you do it, because like you mentioned, you have no outfield depth anymore for at least not depth that's available right away for major league games, because you kind of have to start feeling at least a little bit more comfortable now with your rotation. Now that you've seen, like we mentioned before, Berea do well. Sandoval do really well. Suarez do well. Ohtani's going to be there. He's bouncing back just nice from all the injuries he had. So again, you re-sign Cobb. You do sign a free agent, and it doesn't have to be necessarily a huge name free agent. Maybe hopefully a guy that can be like a Cobb, or kind of like a guy that he's all right, and then he kind of outperforms what you thought. Like somebody like that would make a lot of sense, and then you don't necessarily wouldn't need that kind of arm and don't get me wrong, you always need arms. Like always need arms, but to trade a guy that is going to be in your starting lineup next year, whether it's Adele or a Marsh, and not having a solid backup in that situation makes it kind of because I really hope they don't think about going to like, oh, we'll trade Marsh and then we'll sign like a big time free agent in the outfield, because that's never gonna turn out well, regardless if it's whoever's out there. It's just I'd rather keep the guys we have now. They're young, controllable, cheap, and then if you are going to spend on bullpen pieces, or maybe like I said, spend on Cobb, and then that other depth piece for the rotation. But I just hope they don't trade like Jordan or Joe, and now we need a left fielder because Upton's hurt or struggling or whatever,
right.
And now we go overpay for a guy that's going to be just like an Upton in 3 years. So
yeah. No, it's tricky for sure. It's either that or you get like a journeyman guy to fill in for one season, but then it's like you're filling guys in for one season for forever. So
kind of like what they've been doing for the pitching staff. It seems like for a minute too, is just filling in like that 2, 3, 4, 5 spot every year, maybe like Ohtani, and then Heaney was like the carryover, and then
that's kind of my argument for why they need to lock up Iglesias. They can't, if they say he departs in free agency, it's like then we're starting over again to find another closer. It's like, so gotta lock him up. That's a side note.
Yeah. So here's another question we have: is we were sellers? If so, we did a bad job. To be honest, do you think they did a bad job selling? Do you think they did a good job selling?
I think that's tough. I think I would give them a B right now. I don't think we got an A. But yeah, I think probably I'd grade it like a B. I think if we had traded Iglesias, Raisel Iglesias for like a higher end prospect, I think it would have been possible. But or it's possible to grade this like an A. But yeah, I would say like a B. I don't think we did horribly.
Yeah, I don't think, and this is kind of going back to the beginning of the trade deadline, to trade talks, probably a couple weeks before. I never thought they were going to make like a huge splash. Like I never thought they were going to get Brian or Serger or Kimbrel. I just didn't think they're good enough for you to go all in on those guys, and then maybe you make a wild card for teams like the Dodgers, teams like the White Sox, teams like San Diego, where they have a legit shot of winning a World Series because of what else is around that one player, makes the total sense in the world. I just didn't think that was going to be for the Angels. So would I have liked to see Razel get moved? I think I would have, just because of the fact that you mentioned before. I'm sure the price was high. I'm sure what you could have got in return would have really, really helped this organization, the farm system and all that stuff. But they didn't. I'm fine with that. That's not how I would have played it, but I'm not upset about it. I honestly think it's going to be hard to grade this trade deadline until after this season. If they can re-sign Razel for like a 3-4 year deal or whatever, then great. Then I think it is a W, because you have this guy. If they don't and they lose him for nothing, then I think it's an L, because you missed out on a big opportunity. And one thing too, I wanted to ask people are bringing it up too. It's like, oh, if we don't trade Razel, no problem, or no problem. If he doesn't resign, we just give him the qualifying offer. Now, like I said before, that qualifying offer is going to be around $20 million for 1 year. Do you feel comfortable giving a qualifying offer to a reliever that has done well? Obviously he's had his hiccups here and there this season, but for the most part, he's done really well. But just knowing how relievers are so volatile, and you just from 1 year to another, you just don't know what you're going to get. Would you feel comfortable extending that qualifying offer to Iglesias?
Yeah, he said it's like a qualifying offer of like 20 million.
1 for 20, I think, is a qualifying offer. Yeah.
Yeah, no, that's crazy. Yeah, that's too rich for the the how volatile a lot of these relievers are. But at the same time, I'm a big Iglesias guy, but I don't know if that's it's tough. To do that would be tough. Yeah.
Yeah, and just so people know, the qualifying offer last season was 18.9 million. That's a 1.1 million increase from the previous year, from 2019. So again, I'm just throwing that 1.1 million to last year's qualifying offer, and obviously that's $20 million. So that's kind of how I'm getting that number right there. So yeah, $20 million to me also seems a very high number for a bullpen piece. But yeah, it's just, he's volatile. You just don't know. I mean, we were probably sitting at this point last year thinking about, wow, Mike Meyer, he's trying to get things down. He's going to turn a point. And then also too, you go to 2 years ago, Hansel Robles, Caballo Blanco, had a great 2019. You thought, or 2018, you thought he was going to be your closer for the next couple of years, and then very next year, unable to get close to that. So I guess what Razel has going for him is that he has that history of performing well to his name,
right?
But it still scares me when you're talking about $20 million for a reliever that you hope will work and you hope can pitch at least, well, I guess with him it's like 1.5 innings, 1 2/3 innings most of the time. So, yeah. But other than that, do you think they're going to move anyone else? Do you think they're going to move Cobb? Do you think they're going to move Jose Iglesias? Do you see any other guy that you thought might be moved?
Yeah, I'm surprised. Yeah, like Watson wasn't a guy that I was like, oh, they're definitely going to trade Tony Watson, so that was a little strange. I'm glad they did move him because we at least got something for him. But yeah, I was surprised there wasn't more action, really. I don't know if Cobb not being able to get moved was more to like, excuse me, him being injured or what. But yeah, I was hoping that they would be able to move. But it's tough though, because looking at what the Angels have to offer, guys that are having good seasons that they'd be willing to trade. There's not many guys, not many guys in the Angels that are having great seasons that you'd be willing to trade, right? So at the same time,
that like 1 year deal where it's like, oh, a rental, like it's not like a guy who has 3 years of control, because you're not going to trade Fletcher or these guys that are under control. Like you're not going to trade Stassi. Hopefully they re-sign Stassi, but I didn't think they would sign him or trade him either.
Yeah, going back to Heaney briefly, Heaney was actually a surprise. I probably thought Cobb would be gone more just because Cobb's having a good season. Heaney's kind of struggling. So the fact that Heaney got moved to a team like the Yankees especially seems kind of strange to me. But yeah, I mean, yeah, it's more to the point of what, who else could they have moved, because a lot of these guys that are on 1 year deals outside of Razel kind of aren't really performing. So.
Yeah, and that's the thing too. Like, you don't want to give up guys that are a couple years left, and then you don't have them. There's no opportunity to like re-sign them or anything like that. So,
Right.
yeah, trade deadline was fun. They moved a lot of players moved. I enjoyed it just pretty much as a baseball fan in general. Just I think they said something like 20 All-Stars from this year's All-Star team got moved at the deadline.
Yeah.
That to me, that's crazy. It's
Wow.
just there's so many teams moved. Angels again are kind of stuck in the middle. It kind of sucks, but at least you kind of feel that stuff is kind of turning around. Obviously, still
Mhm.
quite a bit of the season left, but the pitching has done its job recently. You hope it continues, and then obviously the offense will come around when you have Rendon, you have Trout, you have Walsh back, and you're able to kind of get into more of a flow. So one guy that has not been up in the majors for a little bit, but could possibly contribute to that rotation next year, is Griffin Canning. And so one of the questions we have here: what do you make of Griffin Canning going forward? Where do you see him? Is he a rotation piece? Is he kind of damaged goods at this point? Where do you see Griffin Canning right now at this point going forward?
Yeah, it's tough. I remember a lot of people kind of having really high hopes for him, maybe thinking that he was like at his like ceiling, he was going to be like maybe a solid number 2 or number 3 guy. Over 62 innings with the big club this year, he's got a 5.6 ERA. And his FIP, which is fielding independent of pitching, is 5.47. So like it seems like the ERA is real. He's not like getting any like bad luck or anything like that when he goes out there on the mound. Last season he had an ERA just under 4. He looked decent at times. I remember kind of the back end of last season, which was the shortened season. He had some starts against like Oakland, and I think some starts to like close out the season where I was like, oh wow, he actually looks really good. He's still pretty young. I mean, he's 25. So I still probably give him another shot. I think his my projection of him has definitely like gone down. I'm probably not as optimistic on him as I was in the future, but I definitely think he has a shot to kind of obviously be in the rotation next season and compete and try to kind of reclaim some of his value or some of his projected value. So I think we'll see him in the rotation next season if he's healthy. And hopefully he can turn it around. I mean, he was a Gold Glove winner last year, which is crazy. It's like we're going to look back in 10 years and this is going to be a trivia question, like what Angels pitcher won a Gold Glove in 2020. We're going to be like, huh? There was an Angels pitcher that won a Gold Glove in 2020. It's going to be such a random thing, but yeah, he'll be in the rotation hopefully next season. And what we get out of him is really unpredictable at this point.
Yeah, I'm not sure what you're going to get out of him. Hopefully it's a health thing, more of a mental thing, and he can kind of work through the physical aspect of it, going to AAA and having an off season to recover. But I don't know why, but like we were talking about Andrew Heaney, and then I just started thinking about Canning. I'm like, is Canning going to be like the next Andrew Heaney where you see moments of brilliance where it's like, oh, this guy can be a player. This guy can really contribute. But then the next outing gets lit up, or maybe the next couple outings gets lit up, and you're just kind of now you're second guessing yourself, like, oh, maybe he can't be a legit starter, a legit number 2 and number 3. And I don't know, like right now, and Grant, like you said, he's young, he's 25. He can absolutely mature and blossom at 27 and still have a wonderful career for the Angels. But at this point, I don't think you can help but to think like, man, is this going to be another Canning issue where it's like, wow, he looked great on Tuesday, but come back around for the weekend and it's like, what happened? Hopefully that's not the issue, but it's just, I don't know. I'm getting a lot of those kind of vibes right now when we're just talking about it right now.
Yeah, it's weird too because he comes from he's a UCLA guy. UCLA has a high pedigree of pitching prospects that have come through and really shown. Obviously Trevor Bauer was a UCLA guy. I believe Garrett Cole was a UCLA guy. Canning, so like they're known for turning out good pitchers. It's just like I don't know what it is with him.
So now we are going to look at the schedule, looking ahead a little bit. Angels play the next 4 out in Texas against the Rangers, who also did a little selling of their own. Joey Gallo, the bat that seemed to always kill the Angels, is now in New York. Were you surprised that Gallo, first of all, just went to New York in general?
No. I'm not surprised that he got traded from the Rangers. That's
right. I figured that. I just didn't know. I guess my biggest thing was like, man, I didn't realize New York was going to be that big of a player, seeing that
Yeah.
Boston and the Rays seem to be just moving quite a bit
Yeah.
ahead of them. And I thought if they did, it would be pitching. So the Heaney thing made complete sense. They need just
Right.
depth.
Yeah, I mean their lineup is really weird. I mean, like they're giving regular bats like Rougned Odor, who's like not great anymore. Their offense has been kind of struggling. Brett Gardner's not that great anymore. But yeah, Gallo is. I could see him hitting a bunch of home runs in that stadium with that short porch in left field. But yeah, I'm just glad the Angels don't have to face him anymore in the West for sure.
So we got 4 against Texas, starting Monday. 5:05 start all the way through until Thursday, where Thursday they have an 11:05 getaway day out in Texas, and then come back to Southern California to face the Dodgers next weekend, which should be a fun little rivalry. And obviously, Dodgers should have Trey Turner, should have Max Scherzer. Maybe he'll pitches during the Dodger series or the Angel series. Maybe he doesn't, but he should be good to go. A lot of Angel fans, well, I'm not going to say a lot of Angel fans, but there was a handful of Angel fans who really wanted Max to come to Anaheim.
Mm-hmm.
To me, that never made sense. And I went on Instagram Live or probably even here too, saying like, that doesn't make any sense. Like, he's going to get you so far, but unless you can get that bullpen situated, he can go, 7 shutout innings every time. It's still going to be a toss up. Did you want Max, or were you kind of like, that's not realistic for where the Angels are right now?
Yeah, it's not realistic, really. Yeah, I mean, it seems like what Perry's interested in is developing kind of younger guys to kind of come through the pipeline, and kind of, guys like Reid Detmers, guys like, recently drafted Sam Bachman. It seems like he's interested in stockpiling young arms and developing those arms into guys that you can really like, hang your hat on type thing. This offseason, we'll see what kind of pitching moves he makes. I would put my mortgage on it now that Perry's going to go use one of our top guys to, like we were talking about earlier, and get like a young, really high upside kind of like pitching prospect. I think that's going to happen. So I don't think it's in Perry's MO to like go and get like a 37-year-old Max Scherzer. Obviously, like, he would help any team at this point, but long term, like I don't see that happening.
Yeah, he only has so many bullets left in the chamber, and you just don't know. At 37, you have a feeling that that's running out really quickly. But with Max, I guess he's one of those freak pitchers, kind of like Nolan Ryan, where he might be able to go to. He's 42, who knows? But if you're going to take it as far as what the norm is, he's definitely at the end of his career, towards the end of his career. But that's going to be the next week of games, the Rangers and then the Dodgers. But again, the issue with the Angels is always going to be facing the teams that are above 500, above, playoff contending teams. And that's what the Dodgers are next week. Not so much the Rangers, but the Dodgers. So they can get on a good run here with the Rangers. It's just now you might have to come back to earth a little bit against the Dodgers. So something else that happened this past week, we kind of touched on it a little bit earlier in the podcast, and that is we had 2 debuts this week alone. And I don't know about you, but it seems like this year more so than other years, we're having a lot of major league debuts for the Angels.
Yeah, yeah, for sure. I mean, when guys aren't getting it done at the big league level, you gotta kind of bring up guys from the farm, and we've definitely had a lot of that. So
yeah, but to me, it's always felt like the Angels have guy ain't getting it done. Okay, they'll DFA him and sign some other guy off the street that had pitched 5 seasons in the majors, and now let's give him another shot. Like, this is like the first time where I remember pitching wise quite a bit that they're like bringing up guys. Like, again, pitching wise, we're talking about Chris Rodriguez at the beginning of the year. I didn't expect him to make a debut, but with a spring training like he had, he definitely had the hot hand. And like you mentioned before, rumor has it that he's going to start Monday night as as his first start as an Angels pitcher. So that's something interesting to see. You have Andrew Wantz, again, another young guy from Salt Lake, making his debut, bullpen guy that, had moments. He looked good at moments. Some moments you could tell that he was kind of in that in between majors, AAA kind of thing, but a guy that, maybe can come up later, if not this year, next year, and kind of contribute a little bit. You had Auston Warren. We saw what he did when he came in. Bases loaded, 2 outs against the Oakland A's. Here you go. And to me, that was kind of like, oh, I was really hoping they weren't setting up that kid to fail. Just personally knowing him, knowing his family and stuff like that, is just like, You
Right.
hope that he got put into a good situation, but got in on the guy's hands, got an easy ground ball, covered it. Next inning, 1-2-3. So he pitched today. He gave up a couple hits. One of them, there should have been a strike 3 call before it. So whatever, but he's looked good as well. And then obviously today, the big announcement, or not big announcement, was a couple days ago, but the big start was Reid Detmers on the mound for the Angels, first time again. Number 1 pitching prospect for the Angels, number 2 prospect overall for the Angels. And what did you think of his performance? What did you think of him on the mound? What did you think about just his outing in general?
Yeah, I mean, those first couple innings went by pretty smoothly enough, really. I think in the first inning, he had like 2 strikeouts and walked a guy, but got out of it. Yeah, I mean, he looked pretty composed out there. Even after giving up those 5 runs in the third, I believe he came out for the 4th and looked decently. It's just his fastball got crushed when he left it kind of in the zone there. Obviously, the Young Gomes homer was on like a 93-mile-an-hour fastball that he kind of left out there over the middle of the plate. And the same thing with the Matt Olson homer. It was like another 93-mile-an-hour fastball that just he kind of just left it out there really to get hit. So I know he was giving up as well as he pitched in Double-A. He had been giving up a few homers here and there. So it's just something he's going to have to work on. The curveball was probably the pitch that looked the best today, and that was kind of his premier pitch, kind of coming out of college that we all saw in the draft. You know, we all saw those videos of him in Louisville, kind of just like flipping that curveball that he puts over the plate at like 77 or 75 or whatever. So the curveball looked good. He looked pretty composed out there. It's hard to make a debut. You know, not many guys don't get hit around in their debut, especially with a guy that's pitched 1 game at AAA. So, you know, we'll see what happens. I don't think they'll send him down. I think they might just let him finish out the season. I don't know if they think that he probably has nothing else to show, like in the minors at this point, but we'll see how early spring starts or in spring training, how he goes. And I could see a situation where they put him back in AAA, like at the beginning to start next year, and then maybe bring him up kind of a couple months in.
Yeah, and especially too, if you re-sign Cobb, you get another free agent. That's 2 guys right there. Obviously, Ohtani, Sandoval, Suarez. You know, maybe he's competing for that 6th spot with like Canning and C-Rod and, you know, him. So yeah, I can definitely see that at the beginning of next year, him kind of battling out for that 6th spot. You know, we'll see how the rest of this year goes. But 4 1/3 innings pitch, 6 hits, 6 runs, 2 walks, 2 strikeouts, and like you mentioned, the 2 home runs. Yeah, it's hard to make a debut. And especially for starting, it's so much hype behind it. And you know, you look at some of the debuts like Austin and Andrew wants. These guys are coming out of the bullpen. So, like, I know for Austin for sure, he didn't pitch the first day he was actually in uniform. So, seeing him that day, you can tell that he was kind of ramped up. Like the adrenaline was pumping. He was there. He made it. Maybe it was the best thing in the world for him not to pitch that first day. You know, he come back the second day, stuff's a little bit more familiar. You know, obviously the first day he's never been to Angel Stadium. He's never walked through those tunnels. He's never been in the dugout. He's never been in the clubhouse. Now the second day, it's a little more familiar. You kind of now know you're there, and then comes out that second day and performs really well. So maybe that's it with Detmers. Maybe, you know, he walks into the dugout for the first time wearing that uniform. He's all amped up, loses a little bit of control, because that's pretty much what it was just control.
Yeah.
Maybe, you know, I think you're right, though. I think you need to give him 2, 3, maybe even 4 starts before you really get an idea of what this kid is capable of, or even if maybe you do need to send him down to finish off the year in AAA or wherever. But I definitely think if you send him down now, it's way too soon. You have to give him an opportunity where his adrenaline can settle a little bit, because I'm sure that adrenaline was just going crazy during that game.
Right. Yeah, I think I'd be shocked if I think he does finish the season with the big league team. Because they even stretched him out a little bit. I mean, he had 82 pitches today over 4 1/3. And I thought maybe after the third, after giving up that 5 spot, I thought, you know, maybe maybe Madden will go to the bullpen here. But they actually let him come out for the 4th. And I think that was probably a good confidence booster. And they let him go 82 pitches, which is pretty, you know, a lot of our starters who've been in the big leagues for 10 years throw 82 pitches in an outing, you know? So that was interesting. So yeah, we'll see what we get out of him the rest of the year.
Yeah, and I asked that question ahead of time too, if there was a pitch limit, if there was a pitch cap, and there wasn't really a firm cap from the response I got back. It wasn't really a firm cap where, like, you hear about it like 85, that's it,
Mhm.
whatever he's at, we're taking him out or whatever. Because I think a lot of that had to do with the fact that he did go over 100 a couple times. I know once for sure. I think maybe another time in AA. So he's already familiar with that. He's already familiar with that
Right.
workload. He already was, for the most part, stretched out. So that's another thing too. If he does fix his command, if he does kind of tighten things up a little bit, he is a guy that can go deep into games. He's a guy that can get you 7 innings on 103, balls thrown,
Yeah.
and something to kind of look out for. You mentioned about him staying up, and then we kind of talked about it before with Chris Rodriguez coming back up probably at the end of the year, or not the end of the year, tomorrow, Monday, at the end of the week. So you got Jaime Barea, you got obviously Otani, you have Sandoval, you have Suarez. Yeah, then I guess so. You have. I'm just thinking though, when Cobb comes back, you're gonna have too many starting pitchers. You're gonna have more than 6 starting pitchers, it seems like. So
Yeah.
if he does finish the season in majors, do you think it's going to be as a starter, or do you think once Cobb gets back, he makes a transition to the bullpen for the rest of the year and then competes next year for that starting spot?
That would be interesting. I think Warren probably can kind of hang there as our lefty out of the bullpen for the rest of the season. Now that Claudio's been DFA'd a little bit ago, so I don't really see that happening. If anything, when Cobb comes back, I could see Berea kind of going back down. Yeah, Berea is he's just kind of a guy that's always come up and come down and come up and come down and gone down. So even as well as Berea's pitched, I think they really want to give an extended look to Reid Detmers a little bit. So
This is my only thing, and thinking out loud and looking at the roster right now, is that Auston Warren is a righty, so
what?
so he's a righty. So right now, the only lefty pin person you have in the pin is Sam Selman, the one they just got for Tony Watson.
There we go.
So he's the only lefty in the pin. But if he struggles and he cannot perform, you might have to put Detmers in the pin as a lefty, not lefty specialist, because obviously there's no such thing. But
Right.
if the first 2 guys in the line in the inning are lefties, put him in, and then after that he can get you some more innings.
Yeah.
But you have him. You have not he's not the only lefty. You have Quintana obviously too. But I don't know. It's just.
And then Cajeda too, right?
I think Cajeda's the guy that might be the odd man out.
Yeah,
And so
you're probably right.
And he's going to be sent down, I think. I don't know, but I think he might be the odd man out. But still, if you need a lefty guy to give you innings, because I don't necessarily know if Quintana is supposed to be able to give you innings. That's still been a very kind of questionable thing all year long as far as what he can and can't give you. But yeah, I think we'll see how that plays out. But yeah, I hope that Detmers stays up. I hope Detmers gets stretched out. But Cobb, I'm trying to think about Cobb, Otani, as there's like a whole bunch of firefighters just whizzing by the house. Otani, Cobb, Sandoval, Suarez, Barea, Detmers at 6. Rodriguez would be 7. So, it's amazing to see. Otani got pushed back again, so we're not sure if he's going to pitch late in the Texas series or in that Dodger Stadium.
Right.
He's supposed to pitch Monday,
Right.
so maybe that's a bigger issue than people are letting on, and maybe I don't know. Maybe they shut him down. Maybe they don't go to him every 6 days now that they're kind of out of it, and then maybe he only pitches once every couple weeks, and now you have enough, bullpen arm or enough arms to fill in the gaps.
Yeah, I mean that's a possibility. I feel like there's no reason now to kind of really, grind Otani into the ground with starts and all that stuff. So yeah, I could see that happening.
Let him go after 61. This Otani, we want you to get 61. Let's just focus on that. Get 61. We'll let you get your Cy Young another year, but just get 61 for us, and let's put that on a t-shirt.
Yeah, I feel like he needs like a 3-homer game kind of thrown in there.
Yeah,
maybe a couple 3-homer games, and then we can talk. But yeah, I think he ends up really either at 50 or really close to 50.
Yeah, I think like I said before, I think we've talked about it before. The Angels single season home run record is by Gloss. And remember, I think you said too, Trout got really close one year and was just off of it. I think it's like 48 or 49, something around there. And I think like 52 for Ohtani is very, very doable. And maybe that's what he goes for. Maybe he sets the all-time Angels single season record in home runs. So, and still something that awesome to kind of cheer for and stuff like that. So that's going to wrap it up for this episode of the All Angels podcast. Again, you can follow me and you follow us on Halo Haven, Halo_Haven on Twitter or Instagram. Follow the YouTube page, All Angels podcast YouTube page. Obviously, follow the podcast, subscribe, rate, review. Emails, send in at allangelspodcast@gmail.com, or again, any kind of DMs at our social media sites. Mike, where can they follow you?
Give me a follow at ChewingCast. On Twitter.
All right. So for Michael Brown, I am Dan Garcia, and you listen to another edition of the All Angels podcast.